Have you ever had a piece of patterned paper that you really wanted to love, but every time you tried to use it, it just felt a little too bold or overpowering? That was exactly how I felt about this black and white bee paper sitting in my stash. Last week on my channel, I used ink blending alongside a heat emboss resist technique to completely transform some patterned paper, and that project was so much fun I wanted to experiment with the idea again. But this time, I wanted to keep things a little simpler. The pattern on this particular paper is larger in scale than the one I used last week. So instead of pulling out the Versamark and clear embossing powder to do the stencil effect, I wanted to see if ink blending alone could soften this larger, high contrast pattern and make it feel a little warmer and easier to work with. And honestly, I was really surprised by how much the color changed the overall feel of the paper. I pulled out my ink blending tool again and I used Bumblebee ink over the patterned paper first, just really softly, and then added a little Daffodil Delight through the center to brighten everything up a little. Around the edges, I deepened the color again with more Bumblebee, and then I added a touch of mustard and some pumpkin pie. That combination really helped create a soft glowing effect through the middle panel. Before I started assembling the card, I also played with a little subtle bokeh-style effect using sponge daubers and the same ink colors. I lightly dabbed circles around the edges of the background and then added a few soft white spots as well. The white ink picked up the sponge dauber texture, so I used my blending tool one last time to just soften those a little bit. I love how it added just a little extra softness and detail without overwhelming the pattern. Now that I had this gorgeous paper, I needed to do something with it. For the layout, I was inspired by the current Freshly Made Sketches challenge, which featured a rectangle focal point in the center of the card. Now, I didn't want to cover up this beautiful paper, so I was inspired by a recent card I made where I created little frames using die cut squares, and I decided to use that technique again, but with a vanilla rectangle. I love the stitched rectangle detail that it pops a little stitched border both on the outside and the inside edges of the rectangle. So that's a fun detail here. The sentiment I'm working with is inspired by the current TGIF Challenges theme, which is all about thank you cards this week. To decorate the frame, I had some die-cut floral pieces that echoed the floral details already present in the background paper. Originally, I left the die cut in vanilla, but after I packed everything away, I kept looking back at the card and thinking it needed maybe a little extra contrast. So I pulled out a soft blue scrap and layered that over the floral die cuts instead. You'll see that come right near the end, but I think it really helped the design pop. Behind the sentiment, I layered a little vellum circle to help that stand out. I wanted a little platform for my bee so it didn't get lost in all the beautiful detail happening in the back of the card there. To finish the card, I added the bee, and this was left over from a previous project that had been sitting on my desk, and it was stamped using the Retired Touches of Texture stamp set and coloured with some alcohol markers using soft blue in the wings and classic black and white yellow stripes. I thought that I'd been done with the project, and when I stepped back I thought it just needed something a tiny bit more, and I was inspired to dig through my stash of vanilla and black patterned papers, and I found this really nice newsprint style scrap, and so I just cut a thin strip of that and added that in. I think it helps give it that really little vintage touch. I'm really happy with how this card came together. It still has that bold bee pattern underneath, but the ink blending completely changes the feel of it and makes it so much softer and warmer to work with. I hope you've enjoyed this one today and it's inspired you to get your ink blending tools out and have a play. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, bye bye.